بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good morning and good afternoon. On behalf of the Arab Network for Quality Assurance in Higher Education and KAHI, we would like to welcome you to the third forum in collaboration with the World Federation for Medical Education titled WFME Recognition. Dear colleagues, we will discuss the following topics: principle and process of the WFME recognition program, experience of WFME recognition assessors, lesson learned from the WFME recognized quality assurance agencies in the Arab region. I would like first to welcome Professor Nadia Al-Bedrawi, the President of Arab Network Quality Assurance in Higher Education and KAHI, to give her welcome note. Prof. Nadia.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you, our attendee in this important webinar, as I see. And also thanks David Gordon, the President of the World Federation of Medical Education, to honor us in this important webinar, as I see. This is the first webinar between the Arab Network for Quality Assurance and the World Federation of Medical Education. And we are lucky enough to have the most important people from the World Federation of Medical Education to share with us this webinar, and also assessors from the World Federation of Medical Education, and two quality assurance that already have the recognition of the World Federation of Medical Education to share with the rest of the Arab region their experience in this. Actually, the idea of organizing this webinar came to me when I was sharing a recognition visit to one of the Arab country, and I realized that maybe many of other Arab countries would like to have this recognition from the World Federation of Medical Education, and it would be a nice idea to present for them what they should do, what they should be prepared, and take a lesson learning from other Arab countries that they have received this recognition. The Arab countries that they received this recognition started by the Sudan Medical Council. This is the first Arab one that they received this recognition, followed by Egypt as a quality assurance agency. And this is the first quality assurance agency to receive this recognition. Then United Arab Emirates, and then Jordan came up. And I think in the pipeline, there is at least 3 or 4 Arab quality assurance agency that they would like to have this recognition. This will stimulate or motivate other Arab countries to have this recognition. So I'm not going to talk too much, but I would like to present our first speaker, Dr. David Gordon, the President of the World Federation, and I will leave the floor for him. Dr. David.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you, Nadia. That's a very kind introduction. And I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of the World Federation with my good friend Romana Cornova. And we are both going to talk about what the World Federation does and why it is important. It's particularly pleasing to see on the screen many old friends, assessors for the World Federation and others. And I'm sure in the many participants I can see numbered at the bottom of the screen, there are many other old friends and colleagues. It is particularly important to us to reach out into every part of the world and to do our best for what is the right thing to improve medical education where you are. So if I may, I might go straight into the presentation, and Romana is controlling this. I'm going to talk about the principles of the WFME Recognition or Accreditation Program, and Romana will talk about the processes, which at the moment she is running day to day. So next slide, please. These few slides are a bit of an introduction to the World Federation. Our role is to enhance the quality of medical education, promote high standards, And it is a partnership from 6 regional associations for medical education, and working with the founders, the World Health Organization and the World Medical Association, and 3 very important executive members, the Junior Doctors Network, the International Federation of Medical Students Associations, and the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates of the USA. We are nearly 50 years old, as you see, and we have, if you look at our website, 3 main priorities: the promotion of accreditation through the recognition program, which we are talking about today, raising the standards for basic medical education, postgraduate education, and continuing professional development. And together with colleagues in the United States, we maintain the World Directory of Medical Schools. Next, please. One particular statement that we always emphasize is that we're not particularly concentrated on the detail of education, what's in the curriculum, how you select students, do you have a lecture-based course or a problem-based course? Those are all very, very important questions, but we're concerned with the quality of education, how well it is managed, how it is organized, how it is supported. And I like to use the analogy that we are, in our position, sitting in the medical school dean's office, and he or she is worrying about whether he has enough money, worrying about whether the politicians are supportive, concerned that we're getting students and staff of high enough quality, whereas there is someone else who is day-to-day thinking of the curriculum, the student selection, and so on. Next, please. The last time the World Federation for Medical Education was able to meet face-to-face was in 2019 in Seoul in South Korea. And you can see very clearly that it's a very much a worldwide organization. Next, please. And represented there are the World Medical Association, the World Health Organization, the Educational Commission, and IFMSA, the medical students. I just pause there because the representative of the medical students, that's the person sitting in the middle of the front row at that time, the representative of the medical education of medical students is often the most valuable and clear thinking voice, because we're all older and we have prejudices, and they can approach it with a fresh mind. Next, please. This is what the World Federation for Medical Education Executive Council looks like now. And luckily we had an occasion with all the executive members and all the staff. And you can see how varied we are. In the top left-hand corner there is Ramana. In the bottom right-hand corner is Dujipa from Singapore. And to the left, you see Titi Savitri from Indonesia. And to the right, there is Olabunmi from Nigeria. So we really do go all around the world. Next, please. And as I say, members include regional associations. And down there, bottom right, you see the logo of the Association for Medical Education in the Eastern Mediterranean region. We use the same regions as WHO, and they are colored on the map in light green. Next, please. And this is the homepage of our website. And I show that to you partly to remind you of the 3 big programs that we're concerned with, but also bottom left-hand corner, you can see the very simple internet address, and the website is full of information about all the programs that we manage. Now, why accreditation? Well, the role of accreditation is to verify that medical schools are competent in the delivery of medical education and that the education programs are suitable. And so that's to make sure that medical schools are educating doctors for the population that they are going to serve when they're qualified. Next, please. WHO in 2016 emphasized that all countries should have established accreditation mechanisms for health training institutions. That's the picture on the right. And next, IAMRA, the International Association of Medical Regulatory Authorities, has called for accreditation in all countries, and that's their press release that you can see there. Now, does accreditation work? And it's very difficult to prove. Certainly, you cannot ignore history. When accreditation systems appear, there are sometimes startling examples of improvement. When the General Medical Council was established in the United Kingdom 150 years ago, half of all the existing medical schools closed. They were not good enough. There is also some recent evidence, and there are many papers. This one next please, is one I particularly like. It's jointly between Saudi Arabia and Australia, and we'll leave the slides so you can follow that reference there. But there in the summary of the paper, they say that as well as the traditional thing of do you actually pass the test, there is long-term benefit. They emphasize the way in which a medical school in the accreditation process looks at what it does and makes itself better. And that is the single most important thing. And certainly I've experienced this in the days when I was the dean of a medical faculty. Every time the General Medical Council visited, we thought about what we were doing, and we were much better afterwards than we had been before. Next, please. So why did the program for recognizing accrediting agencies start? Well, a number of reasons. Certainly there is a danger of unacceptable accreditation systems, which sometimes are there for pure profit. There's one country in the world, I won't tell you where you get your medical school accredited by going to see the minister and giving him a bribe of $100,000 in cash. But we have to measure how good medical schools are, and so we have to have an accurate measurement tool, the accreditation process. And I just emphasize the reasons there. We are trying to make sure that the doctors that are produced are right for the work that they are going to do. Next, please. Now, how did the recognition program evolve? Well, we had been concerned with promoting accreditation since probably 20 years ago, but there was a particular stimulus in 2010 when the International Association of Medical Regulatory Agencies, IAMRA, met in Philadelphia, and, next please, ECFMG announced its plan that in future, after 2024 now, if a doctor is wishing to be sponsored by ECFMG to work or study in the United States, his or her medical school must be accredited through a formal process, either in the North American system or are using globally accepted criteria such as ours. Now, we had the criteria which had been worked out before, or been jointly with WHO, but how did we create a formal process to evaluate accrediting agencies? This took a lot of work. And there are a number of things to think of. First of all, what are we actually measuring? Is the medical education program suitable? Next. And does the medical school meet their agreed standards? And the standards that are used, depends what's appropriate locally. Those are the American standards there. Here we have the standards for the People's Republic of China, which are very clear and excellent. Some of you will remember the days when we used to publish the World Federation Global Standards on paper. We don't now just on the website. In accreditation, we're not concerned that an agency needs to use our standards. It needs to use standards that are appropriate for the place where we are looking. Standards in the United States will be different from the standards elsewhere. So how is the quality being measured? So next, please. What are the criteria for meeting those standards? And what is the process? And Romana is going to talk about process later on, but this is the kind of entry that we have on the website. This is a screenshot straight from the website. And you can see that there are hyperlinks to guidelines, to the WHO policy, to the IAMRA statement, and many other things. So it's a very comprehensive resource. Next, please. I think it's fair to say also that we've been feeling our way towards the system as we have it at the moment. At the start, much of the process to develop the program was done by a team from Denmark and from the United States. And it felt a bit Western, and we've been working very hard to make them more global and taking advice from around the world. The timescale used to be just doing it in a one-year cycle, but we need to move much faster than that. And we now have final decision-making as and when it's needed. The papers were very long. They're now much more concise. Next. And we had all sorts of details to work out. Recruitment of assessors, and now we have very many of them. 2 of them are actually talking today. The training of those assessors, the evaluation of them, travel policies, site visit policies, and so on. Many, many things. And all of these things are written down and are exactly precise. And it's a tribute to the team within the office at WFME, Romana and her colleagues, that this has worked so well. The recognition program at the moment, what we do in evaluating a medical accrediting agency is similar to what you use in evaluating a medical school. It's medicine specific. The agency has to evaluate itself. We observe it in operation. And then once the report is prepared, it goes to a recognition committee for a final decision. The criteria are based on our original meeting 16 years ago with WHO about this process. And the criteria were brought up to date just 2 years ago, but they will not change now for a while. And just as medical schools often say that accreditation makes them better, we are delighted when accrediting agencies feel that we are not testing them, but we are a partner in their development, and it leads to their improvement as well as being compliant with our criteria. Next, please. So here is a World Federation team actually in action in Indonesia. From the right, you have a team member from Sri Lanka, another from Australia. Then there is Titi Savitri from Indonesia, who was with the agency. Then a team member from the Czech Republic. And there's one other team member who's not visible in the photograph from the United States. This is the recognition committee who take the final decisions. And you will see that there is one from each of the regions in the world. Professor Sambo from Africa, former head of WHO Africa, from the Americas. Professor Zain from Sudan, we are delighted to have as our representative from the Eastern Mediterranean, the Arab world, who has worked very closely with Sarah, who's speaking later. Stefan Lindgren from Europe, Professor Usman from Indonesia, and Professor Alfredo Reyes from the Philippines. So there is a worldwide committee who come to the final decision. Next, please. And I think I'm now, at this moment, going to hand over to Romana with thanks for her moving the slides, and she's going to talk about the process. So Romana, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Romana Konova, and I've been with WFME for over a year and a half. And my role in the WFME Recognition Program is to communicate with the agencies and guide them through the process from its very beginning to hopefully successful end. So how can agencies apply? It's very simple. You can just contact us via email at accreditation@wfme.org and write us an email that you are interested in the program. It's not binding. And what we usually do is that we schedule a preliminary Zoom call with the agency to talk about the process, to discuss anything unclear, to answer your questions, and so on. The recognition process can take from 6 to 18 months. The time frame is not fixed at all. It usually depends on the agency itself, how they plan to, for how long they want to process to take. We discuss with each agency individually what would be the best time scale for the process. Anyway, generally, it can take from a very speedy process of 6 months to a slower one of 18 months. Yes. How much does the recognition process cost? So there's a preliminary fee of $1,000 for the eligibility assessment. I will talk about that later. And then the full cost altogether is $60,000 for the whole package. Plus there are additional expenses for travel, accommodation, meals of the WFME recognition team. So this cost covers the initial assessment of the full application, administrative and logistic support of the WFME recognition team and the WFME office, the recognition team's observation of the accrediting agency during a site visit to a medical school, and it also covers further development of the recognition program. As for the process itself, as David mentioned, there are 4 basic steps. The first 2 ones are on paper. So firstly, we establish eligibility, and then we proceed to a full application. Establishing eligibility is a very important step of the process. We evaluate it on paper, and it's basically the first part of the full application, part A, which consists of 4 criteria. And in this criteria, we basically ask about the legal standing of the agency in the country legal system. We ask whether the agency decision really means something in the country, and whether the government actually acts upon the agency's decisions in the country. We also ask the agency about possible site visit dates, so that we have at least some slight idea of the time frame. So once the eligibility is set, we move on to self-assessment on paper of the full application. There are 16 more criteria where the agency answers questions about their standards, processes, procedures, policies, and resources. Yes, this proved to be a very useful part of the process, at least from the agency's feedback, that they really found it beneficial to look. It's like an internal audit of the accreditation process, where the agencies look at themselves and they can spot their weaknesses and also their strengths right before the site visit. So we usually ask the agencies, there's no deadline for submitting the full application, but we ask the agencies to submit it at least 4 weeks prior to the site visit, so that the WFME Recognition team has enough time to review the document. So then we move to the phase number 3, which is observation of the site visit. So we put together a team of WFME experts. The team usually consists of 3 to 4 people, and the team has to review the full application and then observe the site visit, observe the accreditation process of a medical school. So yes, so we send out the team, and the outcome of this is that the recognition team writes a recognition report. We basically just need to see how the agency does its work, observe the accreditation agency doing the site visit. This is an essential part of the recognition process, and we, WFME is not keen on carrying out these site visits virtually, because from past experience, we know that it is really important to see the medical school at the sites, to see the theoretical sites, the clinical sites, and everything, to talk to the people in person, to see the students, and so on. The reality can be very different to the one on paper. So when the recognition report is finalized, it is passed on to the recognition committee for the decision. Recognition committee is an independent body of WFME, which consists of 6 members, each from one region. And the decisions that can be made is either the agency is recognized, or it is recognized with conditions, or not recognized. WFME recognition status is awarded for 10 years, provided that the recognized agencies submit an annual status report every year in March. In the future, there might be a slight changes, that there will be a midpoint in the annual monitoring. In 5 years, the agencies will have to submit a more detailed report. Right now, we have 25 recognized agencies. 20 agencies are currently in progress, out of which 4 of them are in the final stages of the process, and 14 more agencies are getting ready to apply. As for future developments concerning like the technical side and of the process, we will be launching a WFME portal very soon. This will work as a platform for the agencies to submit all information and all documentation through. And also in the future, we plan to publish accreditation information of WFME recognized agencies in the World Directory of Medical Schools. Where can you look for information? So you can find everything, as David said, at our website, wfme.org. All information and documents are there. And also, of course, you can email us at accreditation@wfme.org. We will be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much for your attention. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Professor David. Thank you, Ms. Romana. In their presentation, Prof. David and Ms. Romana discussed what led WFME to create the recognition accreditation program and how the recognition program is related to the WFME standards. They have shed some light on how the recognition program has been affected by the pandemic and ending with the process of recognition. Now we'll open the floor to some questions from the audience. Please add your question in the chat box down. I have a few questions that we have received from the audience. Prof. David, Ms. Romana.
Thank you.
One of the questions is, when WFME recognized agency is approached by a medical school from a different country, what is the WFME position in this situation?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And the answer is inevitably slightly complicated. Obviously, the ideal is for there to be an accrediting agency for a particular country or group of countries, and for the schools within that country only to go there. And there are substantial countries, large countries, that can have a system like that works very well. So it would be inconceivable, for example, for a medical school in Egypt to go anywhere other than Professor Johansson's agency for a decision. If they went somewhere else, there'll be something very worrying. There are, I think, 2 or 3 circumstances which, of course, are somewhat different. First, there are some very small countries, small in the sense of having only 1 or 2 medical schools. And if you have only 1 medical school in a country, then how do you evaluate yourself? You don't have the independence. So, for example, within the region, there is 1 medical school in Kuwait. And after examining their position and considering the possibilities, they asked us if they could approach another agency in another country that was reasonably close and culturally reasonably close. And the accrediting agency in Turkey, TEPDAD, which has very high standards, agreed to evaluate, to do the accreditation of the 1 school in Kuwait. And there are other countries and territories within the Eastern Mediterranean region where this applies. For example, there are arrangements for accreditation of the medical schools in the Palestinian territory, which is of great importance. So there are sensible arrangements like that. Secondly, there are arrangements where an accrediting agency might explicitly be set up to operate over a number of countries. The best example is the Caribbean Accrediting Agency for Medicine and the Healthcare Professions, CAMHP, which was set up by the countries of the Caribbean Community to work across all the countries of the Caribbean Community, because very often a Caribbean country will have only 1 or 2 medical schools. And to have an agency that works right across is obviously a safeguard for everybody. Much more difficult is where a country has the potential to develop an accrediting agency or is in process, but a medical school is worried and they want to get accredited, and very often they want to get accredited by an agency that will be recognized by the World Federation. And there's no harm in mentioning probably the most extreme example. At the moment, the National Medical Commission of India has not yet approached the World Federation for recognition. The National Medical Commission is the statutory body for evaluation of medical schools in India. And of course, India has a fantastic record in medical education, with many medical schools that are amongst the very best in the world, but also quite a lot of medical schools that are not as good. But we are starting to get medical schools in India saying, can we go to another country to get accreditation and therefore get fall into the WFME recognized system? And it would be much, much better for medical schools in that country to actually stick with getting the National Medical Commission into the system, because that would be, it would be very messy if a country with many hundreds of medical schools, people started to go somewhere else. So that would be, that's something we would very strongly discourage. If a medical school wishes to be accredited by an agency outside its country, and if the agency is willing to do so, when we do then insist that the agency approaches the appropriate authorities in that country to make sure that their decisions will really mean something. I'll give you another example of a country with 1 medical school, and that is Moldova. And Moldova has 1 medical school. I declare an interest. I'm a visiting member of the staff there, but it's tiny. So they approached an agency in Kazakhstan. The Kazakh agency wrote to the Moldovan government and said, will you accept our decisions? Absolutely. And they agreed. And so the medical school there is very reasonably been accredited by them. But we have medical schools in Ukraine that have approached the same agency, and the Ukrainian situation is not completely stable, but Ukraine is a large country with a very strong medical education system in many parts, and it really needs to have its own agency. So cross-border accreditation is possible. It's a thing to be undertaken with thought. We are refining the processes to evaluate cross-border requests. And we are going to also put a notice on the website within the next few weeks to advise medical schools very specifically on this problem. I apologize for the length of the answer.
Actually, I like your answer because it's a debate in many countries. If I don't like my quality assurance agency, can I go to another one near me, and so on? So putting rules, as you said, very important for all countries that they are accredited or that they have quality assurance agency in their country. And also taking the acceptance of the authority is also very important. So making the rule all over is one of the best things that you're going to do.
Yes, thank you. And absolutely, the Eastern Mediterranean region also has many large countries, including Egypt, but also Sudan, which have very well established and recognized accreditation systems. And I think it's an example for some of the other regions in the world. I think you're ahead.
I have another question. Are there any accrediting agency offering virtual accreditation by any medical school?
Yes. Well, we have been asked over the last nearly 2 years about virtual accreditation, actually evaluating a medical school without actually looking at it. And we have said that in present circumstances, that might be necessary as an interim step. but the virtual accreditation must be verified on the ground as soon as possible. I have seen many medical schools that look good on paper, and once you actually are there, you can see that they are very poor quality. I mean, some of them are obvious. If you take a picture of the medical school, you can see that it is falling down, or you can see students demonstrating outside to say how bad it is. But I can think of one medical school which looks absolutely wonderful. I won't say where it is, but with a gleaming new building, marble and glass and gold, and inside it is hollow. There is nothing going on there. So you have to visit a medical school to see how it is doing.
Yeah, I think you are referring to the degree mills.
Yeah, yes. I mean, the one I'm talking about, the one with glass and marble, is actually a medical school, a sole medical school in one country and strongly supported by the government of that country. But the interpreters there said, if you fall ill here, get on a plane, go somewhere else.
What advice will you give any quality assurance agencies who are thinking to get the WFME recognition?
Well, we will offer advice on any particular thing that they bring up to us, but I think Romano would agree that the papers are very, we hope, are very clear, and the process of actually looking at those papers, evaluating what the criteria are and seeing whether you meet them is a very healthy one. It actually is, it's improving what you do. It's not, so we want to treat it as a quality improvement exercise rather than a quality test. I should say that when you write to accreditation@wfme.org, it will not necessarily be Romano who replies. There are other people on the staff who might reply.
Actually, I received something about the hybrid, about the virtual, but some of the attendee even says, why not hybrid? I mean, one or two persons that they visit really the schools and do anything, and even from the World Federation of Medical Education, and another one or two from outside. What do you think about the hybrid one, a hybrid recognition or hybrid accreditation?
Well, that may be an acceptable alternative, or certainly an interim measure. We've had this suggested also. We've just had a team evaluating the accrediting agency in Catalonia in Spain. And early on in the process, they said, we're a little bit unsure about the virus. We may be doing accreditation by sending only one or two members of our team to the medical school and the rest of the team observing it at a distance. And if you come and see us working like that, we would suggest that one of your team go to the medical school and watch what we do there, and the others stay back in the office. And that seemed to me a very reasonable compromise, but in the event, it was not necessary. I think they've finished the process, haven't they, Romana? Catalonia is on the website as...
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yes, of course, the accrediting agency in Catalonia is recognized. They were keen for us to work quickly because the chairman of the agency was just about to retire. And we did the same in Sudan, dare I say, that Professor Zain was soon to finish at the Sudan Medical Council. So we worked through to... Sudan was not difficult.
David, I have one last question. We received many questions, but we're gonna pick a few ones. Students in Egypt sometimes take the first part of UCMLE exam in 3 years. If their colleges are still new and did not graduated any batch yet, will they be allowed to take the exam?
That's a question really for ECFMG rather than for us. I mean, ECFMG has its policy, and we do things that are important for that policy. But I think in matters of policy for for ECFMG and the USMLE, the inquiry should go to them directly. And I should say that ECFMG are very anxious to make sure that as this process develops towards 2024, no student or young doctor is inappropriately disadvantaged. And that ethos in ECFMG goes right to the top. Dr. Pinsky, who's the head of ECFMG, feels that very strongly indeed.
Okay, thank you, David, and thank you, Romana. I think we move now to our second session, where we looked at lesson learned from WFME assessors and quality assurance. I would like now to welcome Dr. Sarah Osman to share with us her role as an assessor for the WFME. Dr. Sarah is a public health physician with 11 years of national and regional international level experience in health system. Currently, she serves as the Director of Accreditation Directorate at Sudan Medical Council and was the focal person in the recognition process for the Sudan Medical Council. Dr. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction, Dr. Tariq, and hi everyone. Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for the leadership of the Arab Network for Quality Assurance in Higher Education for this opportunity to share and learn from you. I hope next time this forum will be in person in order to meet you all. So my talk will be basically in two parts, what the team of assessor evaluate and what the expected observation from the assessor versus the actual experience, and what I will share with you from my humble experience in the last 3 years as assessor with WFME. Next, please. So the mainly the assessor evaluate the agency accreditation system to ensure that it's working well and resulting in a trustworthy decision in the quality of the medical education in their country or region they are working or operating within. To do that, the WFME recognition program evaluate 4 main points: the legal standing, the accreditation process, and the post-accreditation monitoring, and finally the decision making process. And I will talk about each of these 4 items and what is the experience with other agencies in this. Next, please. So when we talk about the eligibility of the agencies, there is several questions that are very important the agency to answer by themselves. What is the agency entity? Is it governmental, intergovernmental? Is it independent professional body? And additional to that, it's very crucial to understand, is it authorized or recognized by relevant body in the country or region they are operate within, or countries or regions, as Prof. Gordon said before. And later we will see why this part is important. And where the agency are operate in one country, as I said, or 2 countries, or more than 1 country, or the 1 region or more, and is the process for this agency endorsed and the outcome are subject to adoption the government in each of those countries. So in this regard, next please, the agency should able to demonstrate that the standards they are using and their procedures of accreditation are appropriate for these countries, and to contextualize their procedures and their standards to meet the unique of each country. Another question that regarding the eligibility, does the accreditation decision of that agency made published? Everyone knows about it? Is it a transparent process to know, to announce about the decision? And is the decision is accepted by the relevant bodies? And that take us back to that point of, is it authorized and recognized by the relevant body at the country? And if this acceptance, is it reflected in any kind or manner, like providing licensings for the graduate, or accepting them to enroll in post-graduation in education program, or is it a prerequisite for employment bodies, for example? This is very important for the accreditation agency to see their eligibility status at their area they are operating within. Next, please. So from the experience that I had, even including my country, all the agencies were governmental entities and their accreditation decision accepted by the authorized bodies. I think it varies in terms of the decision and publishing the decision, and this is area need to more improvement in some countries. Next. So the other part that we will go after this is the process itself, the core of the backbone of the whole process, the accreditation process. The accreditation assessors, the team, review many documents, which include the accreditation standards, the agency accreditation standard, the system itself, the procedures, the policy, the application form, the self-study or the self-evaluation report for the school that's subject for the visit, and the report of the school plus the accreditation team report for the school will be a subject for the decision-making process. Next, please. Sorry, I'm not controlling. So the accreditation, when we look to each of these items and how the assessor look at it, when we said the accreditation standard comprehensive and published, what we need to see? We need to see it's not a prestigious or amazing document that's on shelf. We need to see a live document in terms of the school understand this, the standards, the school use these standards to develop their self-evaluation. At the same time, the accreditation team understand these standards and they can evaluate the report of the school against these standards. It should be include all the areas of the accreditation, and it should be published. And this publishing will come and you can sense it when you see the school understanding and the accreditation team understanding the standards of that agency. The accreditation system able to determine that the standards are sufficient, rigorous, and appropriate to evaluate the quality of medical schools. So it should be practical and easy to implement and to evaluate. The system also need to show us that it is dynamic, and there is a periodic reviewing and updating the standards wherever it's needed, and it should be part of the system, the improvement of the system itself. And all that will be reflected in the medical school self-evaluation report, and then in the site observation site visit for the accreditation team, and the evaluation for the team and their report. So we will see in the next slide from the experience. I had that the standard is varies from agency to agency. Some agencies has a similar standards using the similar standard of WFME, and some are using different. Some agencies are depend on the qualitative method to evaluate based on the assessor experience and knowledge. Some are using the quantitative method, and some using mix. So next, please. When we come, as I said, to review the standard, we need to look at it in terms of coverage every area. It's not about 7 standard or 13 standard. I need to see the vision and mission of the school linked to the outcome. I need to see the education program, the curriculum is reflected in how they evaluate the student. I need to see the student is a core of the whole education process and they get their support. I need to see the resources standard, the infrastructure, the human resources, the academic staff. I need to see where the social accountability and the professionalism and the globalization, how the improvement is part of this standard. So it's not about how the agency represented, but it's how it's covered all the standards that are available within the framework of the WFME. It should be there, even if they present it in different ways. Reviewing this, the school self-evaluation report for the assessor, when we review it, it's really reflect if the school understand the standard, and that means that there is a communication between the agency and the school. There is some training, there is some work from the agency side to the school to advocate for the accreditation and to train them about what is the accreditation itself. And the observation of the site visit itself, because when the school submit their self-evaluation report, it might miss something, it might not complete, it might not reflect what in the school. So this is what the team of accreditation will identify it as a gap, which the question that they want to ask, which the area that they want to observe. And then when they go to the site, we see this. We see their focus in this area, they ask them this question, they want to see this premises, because this wasn't reflected enough in the self-study report, or they want to verify some of that information. The most fascinating part, I think, in the whole process, the accreditation team discussion. That show the real experience of the accreditation team and how they really understand the agency system, including the standard and the procedures, and how they review in depth the self-evaluation report of the school, and how they discuss the site visit and the discussion during the site visit. So the dynamic between all of these happening in this discussion and show us as assessor how this team is really absorbing and understanding the accreditation concept and practicing in the good manner. This might be or might not be reflected in the accreditation report. That's why it's very important for us to review the accreditation report for the other schools that will be subject of the decision-making process. Next, please. So when we come to the post-accreditation monitoring, in this part, I think we need to look at several things. How the agency will monitor the school after they give them the accreditation. How periodic is it? Is it annual based, biannual based? If they have a mid-review, mid-term review or something. And what I really like about the WFME recognition program, it's flexible. It's not telling the agencies which standard they have to follow, which system they have to follow. There is a framework, and then they accept and they open to different kind of system, and they accept it as long as this system showing us that the system is really working well and providing a trustworthy decision for the quality of medical education at that area. So the periodicity of or the accreditation decision, some agencies have fixed cycle, like 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, and some agencies have a different duration according to the level or degree that the agency achieved. Like above 80%, they can give them like four years. From 70 to 80 is 3 years. From 60 to 70 is 2 years. So this is one of the agency has similar system like this, and how they monitoring that. And this is not limited. If you have 2 years accreditation duration, when you apply after the 2 years, you can have 4 years next time because you improve, or vice versa, from 4 years to 2 years if you have some malpractice or accreditation to backward. So other part that in the monitoring, that if there is substantial change happen, changing the curriculum, like huge turnover of staff, increasing or doubling the number of students without increasing the other facilities, the infrastructure or the staff, all these kinds of substantial changes should be monitoring and should be informed to the accreditation agency, and then they can evaluate if they need to reconsider the decision or it's not necessary to do something. Also, the agency has the authorities for seeking additional information during the accreditation period or not, and do they have a right to have like unexpected site visit or whatever the withdrawal of the accreditation if they have some complaint or other factors. So the monitoring of the accreditation process need to be clear and with details, policy and procedures. Next, please. So we come to the final point, which is the decision-making process. And in this decision-making process, we need also to see how the decision is taken in terms of is it linked or based on the compliance with the standards. This should be the basic because you have a standard and you have the whole process, and then the decision should be related to that standard, based on the standards. How they take the decision. Is it a transparent process? It's a voting with the forum, with a balanced number of people, with the balanced experience and expert people. How they notify the school, what is the appeal process, if the school have the appeal, and the process itself of the decision, it should come from the self-evaluation report and accreditation report versus the standard. Next, please. I think I mentioned this. Next, please. Yes. So in the general observation that I can share it with you, or I don't know, it's an observation plus advisors, I think. The selection of accreditation team. I think it's very important for the agencies to select a harmonized team that can work together with the different kind of experience, someone expert in the evaluation, in the curriculum, in the student support, in the governance of the health education. And also it's important in the, because sometimes we just select a very senior staff and some people become very dominant and other team cannot express themselves in front of their seniors. So it's very important to see how to choose the accreditation team, and it's very crucial to be harmonized. Selection of the school, I think all the agencies that I have experience with, including also my country, we select the best university or the second best university as a school. But this is not related to the process. If you choose the best school or the worst school, if you choose the school that 100% will be accredited or it will not be accredited, it doesn't matter. Select whatever you want from the school. It's not giving any adding value. In contrast, I think if you select a school with the malpractice or less level, you will show how you will evaluate the malpractice or not very good health education process. The meeting with the agency. I think most of the agencies focus on preparing the application, preparing the self-study of the school, preparing the decision-making process, but they need also to focus on the assessor meeting with the agency and to do some analysis, to do their self-evaluation as the agency in the governance part, in the security part, in the human resources, financial resources, and to give this some time and to do like a critical evaluation to themselves and analysis and to prepare themselves for this meeting. That's it, and thank you. I'm ready for the comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Very valuable information, actually. Dr. Sarah, she shared with us her experience as a WFME assessor, recognition reviewer. She shed some light on what the team of assessors at the WFME evaluate and what the expectation during the observation versus what is the actual experience. I would like now to welcome Professor Johan Saeed, the President of National Authority for Quality Assurance and Accreditation NAQA in Egypt. Professor Johansson held many positions, head of the Department of Urban Planning from 2007 to 2009, Vice Dean at the Faculty of Engineering from 2009 to 2011 at Ain Shams University. Professor Johansson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq. Just be a minute here. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, great. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone in different parts of the world. It gives me great pleasure to be here with you today to share with you the experience of Egypt during and after the recognition process by WFME. Today, allow me to start by introducing a brief introduction of NAQA and why we were motivated to apply for the WFME recognition. I will walk you through the WFME preparation and visit, and then finally, I will end up with a few challenges and some concluding comments. First of all, we are the National NAQA, or the National Authority for Quality Assurance and Accreditation of Education in Egypt. We were established in the year 2006. We are the sole accreditation agency body in Egypt, which accredits both higher education and pre-university education. And we are an independent entity that reports directly to the Prime Minister. Our mission is to enhance the quality of education and ensure its continuous improvement, to accredit educational institutions and programs according to standards, national standards that are both impartial, transparent, and comply with international standards. And our vision is to become a quality assurance agency, an accreditation body that is recognized nationally, internationally, and become an essential partner in the path of education reform in Egypt. So why WFME recognition, and what is our motivation? Well, our story with WFME starts, although we were recognized in 2018, but it starts a very long time ago, maybe in 2014, when I first met with David during the WHO conference. And we started the whole process of accreditation. At the time, I was not aware of a lot of things, but then I grew to learn them. So basically, our mandate was to build regional international confidence in the outcome of our educational system. So this, of course, becomes essential with the WHO mandate of the 2024 deadline. Our vision, becoming internationally recognized, so recognized by the WFME, would definitely be part of our successful realization of our goals and missions. NAQA is always keen on subjecting itself to external evaluation to help it reflect on self-assessment and to always comply with international standards and good practices, and for our continuous development. And of course, to enhance the public in confidence, not only in our graduate, which is our mandate, but in our operations and decisions. And of course, our board members' motivation, and two of them are with us here today, Dr. Nadia and Dr. Sumaya, and the panel, and Dr. Sumaya with us, and Sumaya Hosni with us in the attendees. They have always been pushing us to get this recognition, and both of them, of course, are MDs. Okay, so what did we do? What is the process of our self-assessment? What did we do, and how did we go about it? Well, I will discuss 4 stages that we went through. Phase 1, or 4 phases, the planning and organization, the design, then the implementation, and then the actual writing of the application. And as you all know, that the application, in the WFME calls it an application, but we also refer to it as our self-assessment. So we always find me talking about self-assessment or application. So phase 1 was the planning. So we basically started by establishing steering committee, which is chaired by the president of NAQA, which is myself, and members of the members of our board, and they were responsible for providing leadership and support for the whole assessment, self-assessment process and the preparedness process. We assigned the self-assessment or application team. These are the ones who were responsible actually for writing and applying. And basically, we were sure that we had expertise in all different areas of our operation, and that also included our stakeholders. We started by defining the key principles for our self-assessment. And maybe, as Dr. Sarah mentioned before, we planned a comprehensive, reflective self-assessment that covers both internal and external environmental analysis, benchmark NACA's governance and procedures and processes, and organizational structure, policies and procedures against the WFME standards, but all in light of our mission and objectives and the context of Egypt in which we were all operating. And then finally, we set the timeline for the processes. And like I said, the steering committee was always checking with us and making sure that we were confirming with time. The second phase was designing the process itself, or designing. So we identified the needed data, statistics, reports, surveys, any other relevant information that had needed to be gathered, so that we can provide evidence of the achievement of our outcomes relative to the WFME standards. We established stakeholder involvement. Who did we need to involve from the beginning or towards the end? So it was NACA's board, NACA staff, the Ministry of Higher Education itself, medical schools, and of course NACA reviewers, basically in the medical field. The involvement by focusing, focus groups, meetings, data gathering, questionnaires, and personal interviews wherever needed. We decided tools for data gathering, be it questionnaires, meetings, guidelines for the focus groups, the meetings and whatnot, and personal interviews sometimes. Then we started our data collection phase, and that was from gathering data and evidence of performance from our stakeholders, from NACA's publication and policies and procedures, from our previous annual reports, and from the database we have. And then we analyzed and discussed the data gathered. We concluded judgments on the standards of performance and defining the actions we need to achieve to maximize compliance with the standard. And then finally, there was the stage of writing the application itself. This was the team started drafting the application. It was reviewed by the steering committee, and then it was finalized, and all the comments from the steering committee were taken into consideration. All data and evidence was applied. Basically, we got the final approval of the application by NACA's board, and we submitted the document to the WFME. Now, how did we manage the visit? And maybe this is part of what needs to be taken in consideration during the visit. Of course, we assigned a technical coordinator, and this was the head of the drafting team, and she also is with us today, Dr. Maha, in the visit in the audience itself. We assigned a visitor manager as well, who would coordinate and follow up all individual and administrative and logistic tasks to solve problems and whatnot. And we should say that the technical team, the technical coordinator, visited, accompanied the review team in all their activities. We had a list of tasks, and we built a monitor grid and tasks, and had to have, what needs to be done where and who, and we assigned the responsibility, and each one was responsible for doing the job. And this is not only during the visit, but even before the visit. And maybe as I come for next slide, I will tell you why all this had to be coordinated. And then finally, you have to plan the visit schedule carefully. Like my colleagues, both Ramona and Dr. Sarah and Dr. David themselves mentioned earlier, that there are two steps during the site visit. One of them is visiting monitoring the actions of the reviewers and the agency during the visit itself. And another one was to look at the decision-making process. So we had to plan our visits and plan the dates so accurately, so that we will have a report or a decision that is ready to have a board during the board meeting, and we have the visit itself to the one of the universities. And maybe, as Dr. Sarah said, we actually selected some of our best universities to be there for the visit, but actually it was also coincidental because this was the university that was ready to apply for re-accreditation at that time. So basically it was, just was coincidental that one of our best universities was the one that was up for the review from the team of the WFME panel. We also wanted to showcase ourselves to the WFME panel, and we arranged for a schedule during the visit because they after the 3 or 4 year visit to the school, they spent one day at NACA at the agency itself, and they would attend the board meeting where the decision was taken for this accreditation school, one of the Asyut University. And basically we took them on a tour of the premises so that we could also show them, and we explained to them in part what has been, how our system works, which was the digital online accreditation system. And also there was a very important part, which is the coordination. Though it seems very, very banal maybe, but it's very important. Pick up from airports, hotels, and vice versa. When they're picked up from the hotel to go to the visiting the university and so on. And all this was taking consideration what the traffic was like and so on and so forth. And of course, complied with the instructions of the WFME about the types of hotels and level of that we should accommodate our panel. Then if we start talking about what the challenges that we met, we had a strong challenge, which is the language. And yes, it is true that most of the time we always say that Egypt is an English-speaking country, although English is not a main language, but Arabic is. But basically, we do have some of the time a language problem, particularly that all our documents were in Arabic, and sometimes most of the visit, or I should say all of the time, the visit is conducted in Arabic. And so basically we had to translate all our documents. We had to also make sure that there was translation all the time during the visits, and there were 2 translators accompanying the panel all the time, so that in case there was any problem, they would translate directly, so that the panel would not feel that something is happening that they're not aware of, and we did not interfere whatsoever in the translation process. We also engaged had to engage our employees because they were not aware of what was going on, and at the end of the day, it did not impact them directly. So we had to have give them several sessions of orientation, what was happening and why was it important to us as an agency, and also we had to motivate them. And finally, it was the involving the stakeholders, who and when and how and why. Many universities wanted the schools to be up for accreditation during the visit, but of course it was not up to all of us to control that. So finally, what are the tips that we should tell any institution? First of all, the key to a successful self-assessment or application, drafting the application, is basically leadership support. There has to be buy-ins from the leadership, and for us it was also from the board. The process has to be transparent, and transparency, integrity, and honesty are key to success. Including all the different stakeholders during all times. Nobody had to be unaware of what is happening during the visit. Everything has to be evidence-based and reflective, and this is what basically we did. And we have to trace the continuous improvement resulting from any previous self-assessment processes in our self-assessment. The key to a successful visit was detailed planning. Like I said, we had to synchronize everything, responsibility, And risk management, we always have to have a plan B regarding if any difficulties happen. So what next? What after the recognition? Well, I remember the day at 5 o'clock of, I think it was October 31st, when the team left Naka. I was asked one question: do you think we are going to be recognized? And I said, well, I hope we will be recognized, but at this point, I am happy that we went through the process. The process itself is what is very rewarding, more than anything. David mentioned that as well. But so for us, we kept the momentum, we kept the motivation, we kept the cooperation, and actually we subjected ourselves to more than one external assessment, and we put ourselves, we volunteered to several external assessments, so because we learned a lot from this experience. We also learned from the experience itself regarding the follow-up visits and reports. So although we do it intensively to the medical schools so that we can report in our subject, put that in our yearly reports, but it was also done to all our, we have to use that to review all our schools, our other schools. And finally, we have to we built on the WFME report, the review, all the comments that were said, and I even was checking today, and I found one of the comments that came from David on one of our reports was how we have taken in consideration and we have reduced the number of our staff at Naka. So now we're building on our strengths and addressing our areas of concern. And finally, I think this is the end of my presentation, but it is frozen, and I can't move it for some reason. Okay, so I guess I was just, oh yes, there goes. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I have, I apologize if I have exceeded my time. Thank you, and I'll stop sharing right now.
Thank you, Prof. Johansen. You've been actually on time. Thank you. Professor Johansen shared with us the National Authority for Quality Assurance and Accreditation of Education NAQA experiences of getting recognized by the WFME. She shed some light on what motivated NAQA and how did NAQA prepare for the review process. She also highlighted some of the challenges that NAQA faced during the self-assessment. I would like now to welcome Professor Zaid Ahmed Al-Ambar to share the accreditation of and Quality Assurance Commission for Higher Education in Jordan's experience during the WFME Recognition. Professor Al-Ambar is the Vice President for Akashi. He was a professor in Department of Chemical Engineering at Al-Balqa Applied University Polytechnic College from 2004 to 2016. He held many positions such as the Vice President, the Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, Vice Dean for Technical Education, and the Dean of Polytechnic. Professor Zaid, yours is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tariq. Good afternoon, good other people who is now is morning there, you know. And allow me, please, to introduce also my colleague, Dr. Zaid Al-Bashaira, who is responsible for the Accreditation and Quality Assurance Department, and he is is responsible for the, especially for WFME 5. Next, please, from. Okay. Actually, let me give you a brief about our commission. It is Accreditation and Quality Assurance Commission in Jordan. And actually, we start in 2007 as independent body in Jordan, which is responsible for the accreditation and quality assurance at that time. Before that, this commission was under the umbrella of the Higher Ministry of Education. And after, at 2007, we are reported directly to the Prime Ministry. Actually, from 2007 to 2021, we have a lot of function, and we have a lot of process we adding in the Akashi or in our commission, you know, especially the ranking and also the quality, the qualification framework. Our vision actually, as other commission, mostly we are looking toward higher education institution that to be reached to the global competitiveness, and this will be by applying the element of accreditation, quality assurance, and NQF, what's called the Jordan National Qualification Framework. And actually, this part we just started by last year in 2020 in the applying this function in Jordan here, and this to be also all these functions to be meet the local and international criteria. Our objectives, actually we have a lot of objectives in Jordan here because we are only the commission in Jordan are responsible for the higher education program and institution as well, you know. We have from one of our objectives or one of the strategic goals in here, we are concerned in continuous improvement, how this institution or how this program are improving its program and improving the institution itself. Also, we are looking for the equity because the Akashi ensure consistent evaluation of principles of equity in higher education institution evaluation process, and we are looking for a strong foundation because our standard in Jordan here actually are meet many international standards, especially the last one of the WFME. Let me give you about statistics about number of the university in Jordan and number of students. If you are looking for the public university, we have 10 public university in Jordan, distributed from the north to the south of the kingdom. Technical colleges are responsible for the technical and vocational education, and at the same time we have intermediate colleges. This is for before the graduated or before the more we have 43. About the students, intermediate diploma, we have almost, this is the bulk number of students we have here. We have almost 262,000. But about high diploma, this is intermediate between the bachelor and the master degree. This have almost 4,000. In total, almost we have 300,000 foreign students. Okay, our standards here, I'm talking about the quality assurance and accreditation standard, strategy, governance, academic program, research, and innovation scholarship, financial and human resources, and Akashi here in Jordan. We are connected all the function in Akashi together. I mean, we are connected the initial accreditation with the quality assurance and connected with the qualification framework. If you are going to, in terms of the syllabus or the curricula, we are looking for, as my colleague said before, you know, we are looking for how the matrix or how connect the ILOs with the PLOs and how connected with the national qualification framework. Okay, if you are looking for the quality assurance process, actually more or less we have like international standards. We have self-assessment, and the application, and then evaluation and deliberation. And the last things, we have the Akashi board to give the accreditation or quality assurance, or not depend in some procedure, and depend in the committee comments actually. If you go to the step number 1, we have preparation of the self-study report by institution, and then submitted to the Akashi. And step number 2, we have a like peer team visit to institution for validation this self-assessment report, and then to check and verify each word or each statement written in the self-assessment report, and then finally give their decision, and then submit it to the Akashi board, and the Akashi board will give this accreditation for some years, for 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, or will we can decline this accreditation if not meet our standards. Actually, in Jordan we have some experience, and here we have some different approach. Actually, this quality assurance is quality manner, but at the same time we have like rubrics system, which is graded from 1 to 4, and then at the end of the day, we put each standard or each indicator in this grading to be like a numbers, and to be easier for us to evaluate each indicator and each standards. Now let me to talk about the medical school in Jordan. We have 6 medical schools in Jordan. Is distributed in 6 universities. We have 2 universities in the north of the kingdom, and 1 medical school in the south, and the others 3 is in the middle of actually is located in Amman. More or less, we have 15,000 students in Jordan. It means that the demand in this disciplinary in Jordan is controlled by the GPA, by what's called in Jordan Tawjihi. More or less, we have 3,000 students from as foreign student. It means from the close region in Jordan. Actually, for medical school is starting the accredited by starting the 2007, and in 2010, as Dave said, is starting the GFME to be, it is eligibility for all to be in this, to follow this standards, and to be within the international standards. And in 2019, which Akashi applied to the WFME, and in 2021 we get this recognition from the WFME. If you I did one here like alignment between our standards and the WFME standards. This is not obligatory for us to change our standard, by the way. This is, as said my colleague before, but just to see our standards, how it's going on, as you see here, we have many cross-link between these 2 types of standards, but here we have like if you make like some of them like it's matches by the name, like student as a student. But for example, if you look in the WFME, like they have assessment, we have in other terminologies, evaluation of student performance, and more or less we have almost a lot of a cross-link between and matches between these standards. Okay, if you go to the impact, actually after the WFME team visit us here in Jordan, we learn a lot. We get a lot of experience from them, actually, for example, in addition to because we apply for the WFME because it is eligibility actually by default right now, in all the world. but actually we enhance our quality of accreditation, really, you know, and we need to robust and independent system like WFME for evaluating our procedure and policies and standards. Also, we are looking like a global marketing for recognition, our student, our staff, our institution to be like in the standard or international standards. That's why we apply and we get this recognition. And actually, before, you know, in our thinking, or we are concentrated just only in the local accreditation and the quality assurance. But right now we open the door, we open the gate, you know, to the international accredited from the neighbor country, and right now we have neighbor countries is apply for us to get accreditation and quality assurance. This is actually is coming from after the getting recognition from WFME. Really, thank you very much. And I if you have any question, I will share you with my colleague Dr. Zaid this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zaid, for sharing your experience with us. Professor Zaid actually demonstrated how Akashi process for quality assurance, and he shared Jordan experience while undergoing the recognition process and process outcome. We will now start the question answer session, and please feel free to write your questions in the chat box, and we'll try to answer as much as we can. Actually, right now, I mean, I can see Dr. Sarah and also Romana been answering many questions. We have questions for Professor Johansson. Prof. Johansson, you have listed some challenges for NAQA. Can you elaborate more on how NAQA overcome these challenges?
Sure. Okay. Like I said,
we can also link it with another question, so we can have a question at the same time. What advice would you give any quality assurance agency willing to undergo the WFME accreditation?
Okay. Well, I guess our main challenge, I mean, we did have a lot of challenges, to say the least, but like I said, one of the main challenges was the language barrier. And that is, although we do say that teaching in medical schools is in English, but as a matter of fact, most of our students are coming from the governmental schools, or many of the students are coming from governmental schools, so Arabic is their first language. And yes, they do know how to study in English and learn some terms and whatnot, but actually it is for them, Arabic is their comfort zone. And so we did have this challenge. Not only that, even in our board, and maybe Dr. Nadia, she will remember that, we all speak very good English. As a matter of fact, you guys know that I speak, I mean, the first language that comes to my mind is always English, but discussing, you know, a decision on for the school and going through the voting and going through the process, for us, it would have been very challenging to do it in English, although we all speak very good English and we're comfortable with that. But it was for us, our comfort zone, that we had to do, we had to speak in Arabic. So basically that was one of the real main challenges. And we did speak with David about that. But what happened is that, like I said, and I mean, there was a picture that I had with all this collage of the visit itself, and you would have seen, if you looked clear, you know, you would have seen the interpreters sitting right together with the team, interpreting everything. Simultaneous interpretation just went on at the, you know, directly. So that was one thing that we made sure it was there, and they were also present in all our during the visit and the panel discussion, like Sarah was saying, that the team would sit with the reviewers during the discussions, and so basically they were there all the time and translating, because we wanted to make sure that it was a transparent, you know, it was transparent. Because if I were to say to translate or assign someone from the agency to translate, this would not have been really transparent. because we might have missed something or just,
Absolutely, yes.
Tweaked it to be a nice, nice comment in our. But when with the interpreters, it was really very transparent. And also we realized that all our documents were in Arabic. We had very few documents in English. And so we did translate. We started a website, an English website was not there before the visit. We translated all the standards in English. And we asked, and when we selected our team for the first visit, not the second one, the first visit, which was the one that was going to be reviewed during we selected a team that would write the report in English, because they had to write the report in English, not in Arabic, because we did not want to translate. So this was really something that was really, I should say it was a big challenge. And funding was another challenge, but I will not discuss that in detail right now. But funding was because at NACA, we are, at that time, we were really coming out of several funding problems, and if you would remember, in 2016 there was the devaluation of the Egyptian pound, and so basically the money that we had set all of a sudden was tripled or quadrupled, so we had to make that was another problem, but we overcame that. We did have a funding agency, and things went well. We did have the support, and that was what we talked about, the stakeholders, and maybe this is one of the comments. We did have the support of all our stakeholders, be it the ministry, be it the deans of the faculties of and the faculties of medicine themselves. They were the ones who supported us and found the funding agency. So I guess these were the challenges. And my advice would be, and this is maybe what Dr. Sarah said, select a good team. We had a very good team in the second visit. It was an excellent team in the first visit, yes, and we selected a very good team in the second visit, which was headed at that time by Dr. Sana, who is currently the vice president of NACA, because it was after this team that she performed so well that we at NACA, we recommended her for the position of the vice president, which was going to be which was vacant within a few months after that. So basically, a good team is a key to a good visit. So that's one of the things. I'm sure that you at Bahrain will not have a problem of the language, because I know that you have everything in English. But I'm just saying that for any other agencies, where Arabic is the main language. Yes. So I guess that, yeah.
Maybe Dr. David would like to comment on this, and I would like to comment after David.
Sure.
Go on, Dr. David.
Yes, I think two things to comment on. The language, first of all, and we are very conscious of the way in which this is a problem. If you'd asked me 30 years ago, I would never have predicted the extent to which English had become more and more the lingua franca worldwide. But that's the way it is. It's not, we didn't deliberately do it. But it's very important that the translation, because we cannot guarantee to produce a team that could all work absolutely perfectly in any language other than English, except perhaps French. We could have a French-speaking team. We do try whenever possible to send someone out who can talk in the local language as well. So at the moment, we have a team in Mexico with one Spanish-speaking member. So that aids on just matters of organization and so on. But the language is a very difficult one. And I think of the many points that Johansen made, one that I would particularly support is to say, don't rely on a friend who can do it, or someone from the staff, or someone from the staff of the medical school. It really is a job for the for professional translators and interpreters to do. However good your friends are at translating, they will not be as good as a professional. And also, if the translator is not completely independent from the school and from the agency, then their translation may not be completely independent, may not be completely clear and free of the taint of that kind of problem. The language problem is actually most acute in places like Egypt or Jordan, say, where the local use of English is so much that I can get off a plane in those countries and I know that my 2 words of Arabic will not be needed. But it's a lot easier when you're somewhere much further away linguistically, like Indonesia or Taiwan or Thailand, where there's just no question you've got to have things translated properly. So I think I'd support that absolutely, but we are very conscious of the difficulty and of the expense involved, very conscious indeed. One other thing I'd just like to follow up on, and this touches on something that Sarah said and Johansson said as well. It is understandable in many countries that when you have an accreditation visit being observed by a World Federation team, that you'd like the medical school to be your best one, or one of your best ones. And that's exactly what happened in Egypt for the reasons, you know, the earlier visit was to a good school, but not quite such a good one. And I think in Sudan, we had the same. And Sarah, one of, not the last visit she did for us, but she did one before to a country in the Far East where amongst several hundred medical schools, culturally, they could not show anything other than their very, very best one. But that's the way it is. In many ways, to have your accrediting team visiting a school of dubious quality might be more helpful to us, because if you're visiting a school of dubious quality, then you can see how the accrediting team works on this. And of course, we can evaluate how the accrediting team works anywhere. And indeed, even with the very best schools, going to the University of Khartoum or to Ain Shams or wherever, no best school is absolutely perfect. I was the dean of what I like to think of one of the best schools in in England, but we knew we were not perfect, and we were certainly told we were not perfect when we were doing our self-evaluation. So I think translation, just to go back to that, very difficult, and we understand completely.
I might add to this, because I know that Sarah went to China, went to many countries, but I believe that one of your team speaking the native language is important, because even when we were sitting with a reviewer, or we can understand what they say to each other in their language.
Yes.
So presence of one of your team with that one or two of the team that speaks the native language, I think it is important to have a real and accurate decision on the accreditation. I think you're doing like that, but just because Sarah told it and Johansson said it, and I felt it also when I went to one of your visits, actually, that we can understand people what they're talking about, even when they are talking about WFME, what they are talking about themselves. So it is really important to understand. I think in Egypt, there was no one who's speaking Arabic.
No. At that time we had, I think at the time of the Egypt visit, we had no speakers of Arabic on our assessor team. We now have several, two of whom are on this screen. We have Ismail Matalka from Jordan. In Jordan, we have one or two others. There are, and you mentioned that Sarah went to China. We do now have a Chinese speaker on the team, and so on. But there are some places where you can still never do that. We've had a team just come back from Hungary. Do you know anybody who speaks Hungarian? No, but so that's a difficulty. But that's inevitable. Yeah.
I would like to ask.
Maybe I have a question to you, David. Excuse me, Tariq, but I have a question to David, actually, because he started to talking, and I know you have many questions for other speakers. But someone was mentioning, is there a possibility to do a dual recognition for two accreditation agency near each other in the near countries. I think, say, I'm not saying exactly Kuwait and Qatar because they have small, I mean, how it comes that you can do a dual recognition for agencies?
Well, you know, obviously small countries like Qatar and Kuwait and so on may well combine with another country to create an agency that would go over those two countries. But yes, in terms of looking at more than one agency at a time, logistically it might be difficult, but we're always looking at things to save expense for us and for the agencies. So the team that went to Jordan, the team that went to Hungary last week, the team that went to Catalonia, we mostly were able to save costs in travel by bringing people, but we don't want to bring people from too close because we really need an independent view. And the team that Sarah was on in China, I think is a superb example of a very independent view from Canada, from Sudan, from Argentina, I think, and that really means that the system has been looked at from outside. And in many countries, and China is a good example, it is, although it's expensive and awkward, but it is actually a very, very strong endorsement. If a team like that one that went to China evaluated it really very positively, then for the Chinese people, it's a very strong. And for a giant country like China, it's very important to have a really tough accrediting agency, which they have.
Yeah, and Dr. Sarah, there is a question for you. Would you like to share any challenge? And also, Professor.
Yeah, I want to share the challenge. I think the main challenge for us at that time was the hesitance, because Sudan was the first country in the Middle East and Africa, and there is no other country that we can ask or have ask them for support. So each time we think that we are not ready enough. We are not ready yet. So I think we spent long time from the first application for the eligibility and the final application. It took more than, I think, a year because the hesitance. So I think my advice to other countries, it's important to be afraid, but it's important to just prepare and go ahead, because it's I don't know how to say it in Arabic, but it's a sahl al-mumtani'. So it's a difficult, but it's at the same time you as an accrediting agency, you know how to be critical in your, you have a critical eye. So you can do that to yourself and then you can move forward. I think the language wasn't that much barrier. It's barrier, but not very much. We need to translate like the law, the bylaws, something like that. But in general, we have, we used to have the team writing report in English, the system in English beforehand. I think one of the most challenging thing that the system that we applied, it was a new updated system. So we need to do a pilot before applying the first visit. And I think this was helpful, but still we was very afraid to go ahead. So this is the challenge. And you know, Sudan was a very low resources country. It's also a challenge regarding the financial and the sustainability itself for the country. Thank you.
Can I just add one thing relevant to Sudan, to what Sarah's just said, and that is, we say that the standards for medical education used in any country don't have to be our standards, don't have to be anybody else's, they have to be the standards that are right for that country. And Sarah and Professor Zain and others worked on the standards for medical education in Sudan, and they are really a very good example to follow because they are concise. You know, you've got to have a document that is stringent enough for the ancient medical schools like in Khartoum, but must also be practical in Darfur or on the coast. And it's a very, very good example of a set of standards that's exactly right for the country and will work everywhere in that country. So just that's for other local Arabic countries that might not be unsure about standards.
Thank you, David. Professor Zain, would you like to say, and would you like to add any challenge?
Actually, in Jordan here, we didn't face any a lot of problems when we applied for the WFME. Sure, we have some problems, but when we just start at that time, you know, we prepare like a team, you know, and we read a lot of about the WFME, especially from its website, you know. And we ask some experts from university here. Also, they help us a lot. But the things, the main things, because we are the Akashi is reported directly to the Prime Minister. It means that everything we have to do, we have to write to the Prime Minister. You know, this is political things. You know, and the financial things at the first time we face this problem, but at the end of the day we solve this problem and everything goes smoothly. Yes, thank you.
Professor Nadia, you are mute. Professor Nadia.
Let me ask Dr. Gordon something else. Actually, I have received recently some of the people that they want to do recognition for the postgraduate education in medical schools, and they want my consultation actually upon this. So I was a little bit confused. Do you offer, say, recognition for postgraduate study alone? I know there are standards. I'm one of the people who were in expert writing, reviewing your standard. But do you do this type of recognition for postgraduate education alone, or it should be part of the quality assurance agency in the country?
Thank you. Very good question. Of course, our remit extends for the whole of medical education, and that means from when you go to the doors of the medical school until until the day you die, because we're all still have a responsibility to keep learning. However, although we have standards for postgraduate education, the quality assurance and accreditation in postgraduate education is not something where we have made progress. It's very difficult. There will be a new set of standards for postgraduate education sometime in the next few months or the next year or two. The team lead for writing those standards is heading towards the beginning of the process. And I think it will be very valuable to see how those are and to look at the practicality of application more widely. For there to be some kind of national and eventually internationally recognized system for accreditation of postgraduate education will be much more complicated than in basic medical education. In basic medical education, as a general rule, if you go to someone in the street in Cairo or in Khartoum or in Kathmandu or in Chicago and say, what is a doctor? The person will say, well, and then they'll talk about what a doctor does, and it will be pretty much the same wherever you go. But even the profession is not very good at agreeing what a specialist is. And I think it's not really acceptable that the standards to be, one of the mainstream specialties, psychiatry or general surgery, that those vary very widely from one country to another. And I think that's wrong, and I think it's bad for our patients because they need to have confidence. It's very good, of course, that we have systems where young people with a medical qualification may go to study in another country. Many graduates from Sudan do postgraduate studies in Egypt. The former regional director of WHO in Cairo was studied to be a surgeon in the UK, and so on and so on. So that's very healthy. But to have more common standards and to have a system for evaluation of meeting those standards is very difficult. I hope that this is something that my successor, because I'm not with you for very much longer, I hope my successor will be able to take on and make some progress, but it's a difficult one.
These questions, excuse me, Tariq, these questions came to me because I know that in many countries like GMC in England, they are responsible for the mainly the postgraduate studies there. So is there a country that an organization like GMC, maybe an organization like it in Egypt or whatsoever, asked you for recognition? This is number one question. Number two question is, you have a standard for the continuous professional development, which is very good, even the old one without any updating to it. But many NGOs in the countries, all over the countries, are working for this. So do you have in mind to do a recognition for the national part of the CPD or what? I mean, it's an opening.
Yes.
It's an opening. I know it's an opening, but I see that this is coming.
Yes.
And after the good reputation for the recognition of the undergraduate study, it is coming for the postgraduate study. It is coming for the CPD. And that's why I want to ask you, what's your idea or your future plan in this?
Yes, no one has yet asked us to evaluate their processes for quality assurance in postgraduate education, but I'm sure that will happen. We, as part of thinking through this, we have talked to organizations that are interested in postgraduate education and standards for it in different places. And I was once, a couple of years ago, I was asked to talk to the body in the United States that is concerned with standards for postgraduate education, because there is a system for evaluation of residency programs. And as I thought through and went into the literature, there are many, many different systems for evaluation and development of postgraduate education. Often, there are different influences. The structure for postgraduate education in Japan is actually, if you look at it, it's based on influences from Germany from nearly 100 years ago. Some countries have influence from the UK, such as India, say. So it's a very complicated picture, but we are working on it. Can I just say about continuing professional development, even more difficult because it's even more varied. And one of the other problems is that there are commercial interests there and people who are looking on CPD as a way to make money. And I'll stop.
Thank you. We are running out of time. Just one quick question that everybody been asking in the chat. How often do you review the standard of WFME?
The standards, the lapse between the second edition and the third has been 5 years, although it'll be a little bit more than 5 years when we complete the postgraduate standards and the CPD standards. And we do have, of course, in addition, that has appeared just in the last year, standards for distance and distributed learning. And those were brought to prominence by the pandemic. They're on the website. I think they are receiving a lot of interest and I commend them. We have a translation into Spanish and into Georgian about to go on the website. I haven't told Romana about the Georgian yet, they just arrived yesterday. And we will have the 2 versions of Chinese and other standards. But if it would be useful to have those translated into Arabic, we would, of course, be very pleased to do that. The basic standards, we've been advised there's no need because you will work in English, or if not in English, in French. But if you would like any of the standards to be put into Arabic, and if they would be useful locally, then of course we will do that.
I think I started doing something like that with you in the past.
Yes.
I think I did something in the Arabic in the past.
Yes, that was a while ago.
2016, something like that.
Yeah.
We have now 2 minutes to end. Professor Nadia, a quick wrap of the session.
Okay. So I see Sarah raised hand and Dr. Zaid raised hand. But since Tariq is the manager here, so what do you think? I close? Look
Okay.
how the president asked.
Questions or that was from يعني previous? Do you have any comments? Final?
Yes, it's a very short, very short comment.
In 1 minute, ya Sarah. In 1 minute, ya Sarah. In 1 minute.
Less than 1 minute. It's just about one of the questions that related to the advice to the or observation about the agencies that I was witness their process. I think the most important that the leadership is a crucial part, and Professor Johannes mentioned it also. And when I said leadership, I don't mean only the head of the team. The leadership, I saw it in many entities. It's a group leadership and a commitment. So this is the crucial element of successful for all the agencies that I witnessed. They get the recognition.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Professor Zaid, quickly.
Okay, just I have things about if you have something problems in the Arabic translation, you can not translate all the documents. You can just make like a brief or abstract about these standards.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
So finally, Dr. Tar is very prompt and punctual in his timing. So finally, I would like to thank David, Romana, Sarah, Johansson, and Dr. Zaid, all of you for their valuable, actually, contribution. And I would like to mention that there will be a survey for all the attendees to reply for it. So please reply to it because it will help us improving our next webinar. I thank all the attendees, and I see about 66 persons who participated in this webinar, many of them from Lebanon, and from Egypt and from Gulf area and from everywhere in the Arab region. I think every Arab country had been contributed here. So I thank you very much for your contribution, and I wish for every quality assurance who's going to apply for recognition that they have been actually benefit from this webinar. And thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. So, David.